center, wearing the big, rough, and tough three from Virginia Union University, Ben Wallace.
You know what you're listening to?
Is that a trick question?
It's the I Still Love This Game podcast with your host, Matthew Damian.
He's an idiot. Don't listen to this. He's an idiot.
Welcome to episode 115 of the I Still Love This Game podcast. In today's show, we have a special guest, but special really doesn't begin to describe this. This man is an NBA champion. This man is a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, and if we're being honest about it, despite the fact that he holds the record for the amount of times of winning that award, it should be higher. This man is a 5-time All-NBA player, a 5-time All-Defensive First-Team selection. He's a multiple-time blocks and rebounding champion. This man has his number raised to the rafters in, well, it's what, Little Caesars Arena now. It used to be the Palace of Auburn Hills. But honestly, this man defined an amazing era for the Detroit Pistons. He is, of course, Ben Wallace. Ben, welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course, this is an absolute privilege. Now, the reason I wanted you on the show is the fact that you were recently announced once again as a finalist for the Hall of Fame. Now, the problem to me is you've been eligible for years, and the fact that you're not in, well, it really annoys me. It truly does. Because I have you as the second greatest defensive center, of all time. And that's only behind Bill Russell. Now, when I have said that in the past, I notice I get a lot of kickback from fans, especially fans of new generation. They're obsessed with stat sheets. They're obsessed with the offensive side of the ball. And they don't, and to me, you do not get the respect that you deserve. And the fact that you're not in the Hall of Fame, to me, the Hall of Fame is losing its validity, in my honest opinion. But to the people that watched you play, even the idiots on the other side of the world in Australia, we know the value that you had on the court. But before we get into that, I wanted people to know about your story, because your story is even more impressive, to me at least, than what you accomplished on the court, and that's saying something. So let's begin with your family. And you were growing up in Alabama with 11 brothers and sisters, including yourself. First of all, can you explain to me what that was like? Because I can't even imagine it. I grew up with 2 older brothers, and I can't even get it into my head what it's like with 10 other brothers and sisters.
First of all, it was a great experience. You know, having those many siblings, you know, give you an opportunity to experience a lot of, you know, different things. You know, for one, we had a very strong mother, you know, that was able to keep all of us in check and was able to keep all of us together. She never lost one of her kids to any nonsense, you know, violence or, you know, gangs or drugs or anything. You know, for me, you know, that was remarkable. And she set the tone, man, and growing up in a huge family like that. For one, you always had something to do. And it also builds, you know, a lot of camaraderie, because, you know, everything in the house become a competition. You know, who's going to get the best seat? You know, who going have the remote? You know, who going to ride shotgun? Or who going to get left off on this trip? You know, so everything just became a competition, man. And the one thing I can really say is that, you know, we all got along and we all loved each other and we all pulled for each other. So when it was my time to shine, you know, I had my own built-in fan base at home, and you know, a lot of my brothers, you know, sisters, you know, had made mistakes, and they wouldn't allow me to make those same mistakes. So me, it was very humbling, you know, like it was a humbling beginning, but it put me on my life path to go out and chase success. You know, they encouraged me to go out and, you know, try different things, and when I failed at things, you know, they reinforced the fact that just because you fail at one thing, that don't mean you're, you know, a failure for life. And failure became my best teacher, man. And when I got to the point where I feel like I can beat, you know, my brothers at basketball or whatever, I feel like everything else would fall in line. So for me, it was a great experience. Even though it was hard, it was tough, but we was there for each other. And my mom was one of those people who always found a way to make bad things good. So I give her most of the credit.
She sounds like an incredible person.
She was a very, very incredible person, and she made me believe that I was different than anybody else in the world, and made me believe that if I work hard enough that I can achieve anything.
Basketball wasn't your first love, though, was it? It was football. You were more interested in football growing up.
Man, I love football. I love football. For one, I thought basketball was a soft game. With the foul calling and stuff like that. I just figured basketball was a non-contact sport, and football. Growing up with 7 brothers, you can know what type of contact goes on in a pickup game or a football game. And being the smallest and the baby, out of the boys, so. I sort of got used to, fighting and scrapping for, any and everything that I wanted. So, basketball was a little soft. So, I gravitated towards football, and football was my passion. That was my love.
What positions did you play? Did you play just one specific, or did you play offense and defense?
I played offense and defense. I started out in 8th grade. I started varsity at safety. Then they moved me to corner, and after I hit my growth spurt, they moved me to DN, and
that's a big jump. That's a big jump.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I went from about 6 feet to about 6'6". So they wanted me to get some more action, so I came to the DN spot, which was my better spot because, after playing, skill position like safety and cornerback, then when I got to the DN, I was just able to just read, all the offense and it worked out pretty well for me. And I always played tight end on the other side of the ball.
Is it around this point when you had this growth spurt that you started taking basketball a little bit more seriously or starting to play?
Yeah, well, I started, I started doing things on the basketball court that was catching the eye and the attention of everybody else, but I really wasn't locked in on basketball yet. I think my junior year, playing basketball, I played the way I play now. I was just, shot blocking, I catch the ball around the basket, and I'll finish. But after my senior year, after my football season, I hurt my neck a little bit, and everybody was telling me that I probably wouldn't be able to play college football because of my injury. So then I turned my focus all the way on basketball. And that year, my senior year, playing basketball, I was able to figure out that I could do things that I really wanted to do. I could push people around, I can get to certain spots on the court, and I was just so much more physical than everybody on the floor. So I just used my football skills to bang people around playing basketball.
Can you explain to me and the audience the impact that Charles Oakley has had on you?
Oh man, I mean that's my brother, my mentor, my friend. That's a guy that took a liking into me and was encouraging me to play basketball before I really, had a dream or desire to play basketball. And it's one thing for a high school coach or somebody in the community pass out a number saying, if you need anything, give me a call. And you call that number, and, they answer. But at that time, Charles Oakley was the first professional athlete that I ever met. And, he passed along a number and was like, if you need some help finding a school or trying to figure out what you want to do, give me a call. And that was my junior year of high school. So after my senior year, everybody just assumed I was going to play basketball. So I really didn't have any, everybody assumed I was going to play football, And I really didn't have any basketball offers. And I dialed that number, and he answered. And he pointed me into a direction to one of his friends that was coaching a community college in Cleveland. And, and he said he had seen me at Charles Oakley basketball camp. and say he offered me a scholarship, on the spot. And, and that was major, man. Just for him picking up that phone alone was huge for me, because, I can't lie. I done gave out my number sometime, and a strange number hit my phone. I'm not answering strange numbers. It's just that simple. But for him to answer that phone and put me in touch, with this coach to get my collegiate career started, that was huge. And even after I left, community college, I played 2 years, and I went back home to Alabama, and he asked me what I was doing. I was like, I'm trying to, in the midst of finding the school, trying to figure out what school I want to go to. And he was like, what about Virginia Union? And I was like, I considered it, but, I really hadn't reached out, talked to anybody. And he was like, all right, give me a second. So he made a call to Coach Robbins, and next thing you know, Coach Robbins called me. I got on the bus. Got on the bus, left McNeese State, came to Virginia Union, and he gave me a scholarship, the day I stepped off the bus without ever really seeing me play, all because Charles Oakley said that I was a grown-ass man and he needed to give me a chance.
And when Charles Oakley tells you something, you listen to what Charles Oakley says. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Now, you talked about the transfer. You talked about going to play in Virginia. What can you describe the difference between playing at the community college in Cleveland and then playing in Virginia?
The difference was the competition level. The competition at Virginia Union and CIAA was a lot better than the competition at the community college at Cuyahoga Community College in Cleveland, Ohio. The competition level was just better. But, I will say that my game didn't change. I still did the same thing. I blocked shots. I controlled the defensive end of the floor. And if I caught the ball near the basket, I was going to bang it. So, but I think in community college, I was a lot more active, especially on the offensive end of the floor. I still dominated the defense, blocked shots, ran the floor. But on the offensive end of the floor, I pretty much controlled the offense as well. So when people say that Ben Wallace is not a scorer, I said I sacrificed my game to make my teammates better. If I wanted to score the ball, I could score the ball. And community college, I averaged around 26, 28 points. So no question about scoring the ball. But
I'm so glad you said that. That to me is a sign of a great player or a great leader in any field. It's understanding what's required for success. You identify what your teammates or your colleagues or whatever are good at, and you plug in the holes of what's required for a successful thing. It's not about, well, what can I do? To make myself look better. I think basketball needs to be taught that way, though, and I think maybe that's been lost. Now it's with, Basketball Reference. Everyone just looks at box scores and they try to determine a player's value or worth off that. Well, to me, it's always whether you win or you lose. Right.
I just think for a lot of young players, especially coming into the NBA or whatever, who are good scorers, in college, who become average scorers in the NBA. In order to stick on the professional level, man, you got to find out. It's not about being good, because everybody on the court is good. You got to find out what you're great at. I could score. I was pretty good at scoring. But I was great on the defensive end. So, I wasn't going to change that for nobody, no matter what they say about my offense or whatever. It didn't matter. I was great on the defensive end, and I found my niche. And also, I was playing with Hall of Fame players, Chauncey Billups, Rasheed Hamilton, Rasheed, Wallace, Tayshaun Prince, what I need to score for.
A lot of people don't remember this, but you were actually a part of the vaunted draft class of 1996. However, you did go undrafted. Now, you talked about the mental toughness you had growing up. Did that come into play when you weren't drafted, and you just you were able to lean on that as you were able to literally work your way into the NBA?
Yeah, definitely, man. I went through, several different type of emotions, on draft night, because I thought, personally, I thought I had did enough to get the attention of the NBA scouts. Even though I went to a small Division II school, I was leading the nation in rebound, and I was leading the nation in blocks. It didn't I didn't think it really mattered what school you went to. You know, the top performer's going to perform. So, but, you know, coming out the season, I really didn't expect to get drafted, but I was watching the draft anyway, and I got a call from my agent and say, a couple of teams say, if you're around late second round, then they're going to take you. So now it builds you back up, you know, and and of course I'm going to be around late second round. So I'm thinking one of these teams is going to take me. I think one of the teams was Toronto, and I think one of the teams was Boston. And when Toronto came up for their pick, they didn't take me. And then Boston came up for their pick, and they didn't take me. So now, you know, you're feeling it again. But you know what I did? I just went back to the gym, man. I started working out. You know, right after the draft, I started working out, started lifting. You know, doing a little running or whatever. And like 2 days after the draft, I got a call from Boston and said they wanted to bring me to camp to work out and stuff like that, and possibly, you know, earn a spot on their summer league team. So I took that workout, but you know, that was I made the summer league team, but you know, they had me playing out of position, and you know, I really didn't. I wanted to be at the 4 to 5. You know, they had me like the 2, 3, and maybe sometimes 4, but it just, you know, it was just another one of those situations where, you know, I had to be mentally tough enough to tell myself that, you know, that this ain't the end of my dream.
You did finally catch on with the Bullets in 97.
Yeah, 96, 97.
But when you look at the construct of that team, they had Weber, they had Juwan Howard, they had George Murison. I believe Rasheed Wallace was just traded from there. I think he was on that team the year prior. And
right.
but with those guys in front of you, didn't get a huge opportunity to play. However, once Weber was traded at the end of the 98 season, your minutes and production began to climb. But then you were traded to Orlando for Isaac Austin. Now, the Magic had just traded Penny Hardaway, so the expectations were essentially low externally for the Orlando Magic, but you guys missed the playoffs by one game, which was decided on the final game of the regular season against the Bucks. What do you remember specifically? Yeah, what do you remember specifically about that game, as well as that season in general?
Well, you know, back to Washington. You know, I worked out for Washington, was able to make that team, and that first year I really didn't get to play a lot, but you know, I had some guys on that team, man, that played major roles, you know, in my success and keeping me mentally strong. You know, C. Webb, Jawan, you know, Carol Chaney, Chris Whitney, you know, Ross Strickland, Harvey Grant. You know, those guys was behind me, man, 100%. And they knew that, you know, I deserved, you know, a little more playing time, or I deserved the opportunity. And they just, you know, every day in practice, they would just tell me, like, young fella, just keep your head up, just keep doing what you're doing. He said, ain't nobody going to be able to deny you for much longer. Just keep playing, just keep grinding. He was like, man, the sky's the limit. And, you know, some of the things I was doing in practice, they was just like, man, it's like, man, this is crazy. We want to see you out there. So they kept me mentally in the game. They kept me focused. And, you know, they kept me believing in myself. And so they would have made the trade to Orlando. And, you know, having to move down to Orlando, I really didn't know what to expect. It was also Doc Rivers' first year as a, you know, head coach in Orlando. And one of the things that he did that made me feel comfortable was the fact that the first day of practice or the first day of training camp, you know, he called us all, you know, to a meeting and told the whole team that all positions are open. So nobody have a position. Ain't nobody promised to start. You know, all positions open, and the best players are going to be the ones to start. So that made me feel comfortable. Now I'm back on the ground and back believing that I got to go get it, and believing that it's an even playing field. Because coming to Washington, I knew I probably wasn't going to get much time in front of, you know, C. Webb. I think C. Webb just had signed a contract the year before. Jawan had signed a contract, you know, that summer. So he was like the first $100 million player, so definitely not going to get any time right there. And I think George Murison was like one of the most improved players in the league, so it was an uphill grind. But Doc even the player field and said nobody have a spot. Everything is open. You know, the best point guard going to play, the best 2, 3, 4, 5. and just let us work at it. And like I say, nobody had any expectations, for us to win, that season. I think they had predicted the fact that we might win 10 games that year. But, looking at training camp, looking at the makeup of that team, I was like, nah, this is a grimy team. We're gonna surprise and shock a lot of people. And going through that season, man, it was a different experience, man, because we lost so many games at the end of the game by 4, 5, 6 points that we felt like we should have won or we could have won. But by the end of the season, we felt like we had to, prove ourselves, had made our mark. We had momentum. And going into that last game of the season, it was an ideal situation. We win, we go to the playoffs. The Bucks win, they go to the playoffs. It was one of those situations where I had been playing the second half of the season, without telling anybody, without letting anybody know, other than my teammate and our staff, that I was playing on a broke foot. And every day after the game, every night after the game, I would have to put this air cast on. I have to put this boot on, to walk around in. So that last game of the season, when I came out the game, and I sit for a while, and after my foot, it's stiffening up. It got stiff, and the last play of the game is Doc wanted to put me back in the game, and I told him I just couldn't go. I just could not go. I tried, to get that foot loosened up, and it just would not. It just would not respond. So I was like, I can't go. And the last play of the game, I think they came down, Bucks came down, took a shot, missed the shot, and got a tip in. They tipped the ball in with like 0.3 seconds left. And they ended up winning the game. So, Doc had a conversation. He was like, if I could have got you in that game, we'd be going to the playoff. And I was like, man, if I could have got that foot to react, I definitely would have went to that game. But after that game, I think I had surgery on my foot a week later to prepare a broken foot.
Believe me, this is the ultimate compliment. I'm not surprised that you could play through a broken foot. There's very few people I would say that about. But
I also played on a broken leg in Cleveland. I broke my leg in Cleveland. I still played about 6 minutes on a broken leg before the trainer took me out the game.
It's insane. I didn't even know that story. When did that happen? How did that happen?
We was playing against Houston, and me and Yao Ming had got tangled up, and he ended up kicking me in the back of my leg, and I just thought it was maybe a muscle bruise or whatever. So I kept playing. It was hurting a little bit, but I could still run up down the floor. I could still jump. I was still mobile. I can go lateral. At halftime, trainers looked at it, like, how you feel? Like, I'm good, man. Let me go finish this game. Came out, locker room at halftime, and went up and down the floor a little bit. And one of the assistant trainer was a soccer trainer.
Right.
So he saw me running, and he pulled me off the floor. And he said, I think I know that injury. And I was like, man, just a little bruise, man. I'm going to be all right. It was like, I don't think that's a bruise. He said, I think your leg is broke. And I was like, man, get out of here. And they took me in the locker room and got x-rays. And just like he said, the leg was broke. It was broke all the way through. Like you said, the adrenaline. But like as soon as I saw the x-rays and I saw that dark line through my bone, it knocked all the adrenaline off.
So after that season, which, as you pointed out, was a massive overachievement, but to people that know your career now, they're not surprised. You were then traded, and you were traded this time to the Pistons for a sign and trade with Grant Hill. Now,
right.
Looking back, that actually is surprising to me because you went to Orlando just after Penny Hardaway was traded. And then you went to Grant Hill just after Grant Hill was traded. And if anybody knows 90s basketball, those two were two mega stars, two of the top 5 stars in that entire decade behind Olajuwon and Jordan and Shaq. Really, those were the top 5. So here you are in a similar predicament, and expectations were somewhat low once again. So did you feel comfortable being in that situation, that environment? Did you feel like it was an open spot or an open roster situation like Orlando?
Well, at that point in time, when I got traded, to Detroit, coming from Orlando, I pretty much had, proved to myself and, all my teammates on that Orlando team that, that I was a player in this league and that I could be effective in this league. And I think that trade to Detroit, the thing that made me comfortable about that trade to Detroit was the fact that Detroit was trying to sign me before the sign and trade because they didn't know whether Grant Hill was going to stay or not. They was already trying to sign me. So, when they figured out that Grant was going to leave, that's when they decided to do the sign and trade. So by the time I got to Detroit, I knew it was just a matter of time, before the fans and the rest of the basketball world, take notice to what I was able to do on the court. Because in Orlando, nobody gave us a chance. Then it was a chance that we might only win 10 games, and I had to jump center and guard centers in the league, and I proved to everybody that I was capable of doing that. So when I got to Detroit, man, I feel comfortable with playing in the NBA. Not only did I feel comfortable with my ability, I feel comfortable like I'm supposed to be in this league now. Like I proved myself. I started from the bottom, and this is my rise now, and I'm on a upward climb, and I wasn't going to take a back step, a back seat for anybody. So whoever was on that roster, either they was going to play beside me or they was going to play behind me. I was going to solidify my spot when the first time I stepped in the gym, and that's what I tried to do.
In your first year in Detroit, you guys went 32-50, which was a step backwards, but Grant Hill leaving, obviously, there was a big change there. But at the end of the season, you guys brought in Rick Carlisle as a coach, and the next season, with Stackhouse's production dropping, because the first season that you were with him, he put up nearly 30 points a game. But when his production started to drop, you became the face of the franchise. And you won 18 more games, and you were in the playoffs, and you eliminated the Raptors, who at the time had Hakeem Olajuwon, who was actually starting at center at that point. So, Can you describe to me the difference or the pressure that you felt being the face of the franchise, and then the difference in playoff basketball to regular season basketball? Because this is something I try to describe to my listeners all the time when they look at regular season production and they try to forecast that into the playoffs and the player's going to do this or that. To me, there's a huge difference in intensity when it comes to the playoffs.
Yeah, it is. But with the signing of Rick Carlisle, coming in, we had some raw talent. I think Jerry Stackhouse was averaging about 30, and I was going out getting 13 to 20 rebounds on most nights, and I'm blocking 4-5 shots, we're defending, and we was scrapping. We was in every game that year before, but I just said that after our team exit meeting, I just said to a couple of guys that it's impossible for us to keep losing if we got one of the top scorers in the league, one of the top rebounders, and and we playing some of the best defense. And when Rick Carlisle came, it was just about slowing the team down and getting us organized and getting everybody on the same page. And once we got everybody on the same page, we was able to go out and win those close games that we might have lost, the year before. And having a chance to go to the playoff. What's so special about the playoff is, it's a chess match. And the reason you can't look at the regular season and project it into the playoff is because if I go out and have a good game tonight, now you got to play that same team. So what that team is going to do, it's going to put you in the scout report. They're going to come up with plans and schemes to try to knock you off your game. So you have to be mentally tough enough to, accept the double team, pass out the double team, and know that this team is going to throw everything after you to stop you. Now, if you go out and you try to force the issue, you're going to have a terrible game. But if you can accept that fact and play through it and play around it, you're going to succeed. So the playoff level basketball is so much better than the regular season and so much higher than the regular season because guys actually have a chance to get pissed off at each other. Regular season, if you have a good game, you move on. I don't see you until, maybe 2, maybe 3 months later, and now the excitement dies down. But in playoff, I play you today, you beat me today, or you embarrass me today. 2 days later, you got to do it again. 2 days after that, you got to prove that you can do it again. So the intensity level rises so high, and the game gets so chippy, it builds up for a game inside the game that a lot of people don't recognize.
The next season, you guys have a brand new starting backcourt. There was a trade for Stackhouse for Rasheed Hamilton. Just prior to the season, you guys brought in Chauncey Billups. You drafted Tayshaun Prince as well, who was, as a rookie, he didn't play much, but in the playoffs, he played a hell of a lot, especially up against Tracy McGrady. With these new additions, you guys did have the best record in the East, and you made the conference finals for the first time since 1991. The trajectory was there, especially with Carlisle as a coach. But then he was replaced by Larry Brown. And I wanted to know how you guys, in the locker room, how you guys reacted to that.
Oh, man, it was an adjustment, man, because, like you say, we did make some changes, and we were able to make it. We were able to lock down the best record in the East and make it to the Eastern Conference Final. Although we lost to Jersey, but we thought that we was on that path, to win a championship, man, or at least win the Eastern Conference Final. And then changes was made, but just because you're having a good season, man, don't mean everybody's happy. So they decided that they wanted to make a change and go with Larry Brown. When Larry Brown came in, and I would say the first 2 or 3 days in training camp, everybody was looking around like, what the hell just happened, man? Like who is this guy? But as training camp went along, we all realized that this could be the guy that we need, because he didn't coach me one way and coach Chauncey another way. He didn't coach Rep one way and coach, Tayshaun another way. He coached everybody the exact same way. His expectation for everybody was the same on both ends of the floor. You're going to defend, and we're going to run the offense. You're going to have your defensive assignment, and you got your offensive assignment. And he put the team in a situation to succeed. It wasn't going to be a one-man show. We're always going to do it on defense, and we're all going to do it on offense. And matter of fact, he told me that we're never going to win a championship if you don't shoot the ball. I was like, man, I don't need to shoot the ball to be effective. He was like, but you need to shoot the ball to keep the defense honest. So the start of every game, I knew the first 2 plays was going to come to me regardless. And with that, it made me work harder. It put everybody else on notice that if you work hard on defense, you're going to be rewarded on the offensive end. And when we got out there, man, when we hit our stride, we was rolling pretty good. And then all of a sudden we traded for Rasheed. And when Rasheed came in, and it was a perfect fit from day one.
I'm glad you brought up Rasheed, because heading into this season, you guys actually had the number 2 pick in the draft, and you guys went with Darko ahead of Carmelo Anthony and Chris Bosh. Dwayne Wade was also available, but no one really took him seriously at that point. A lot of people thought that he was drafted a little bit too early at the draft. Of course, history tells us it was one of the great draft picks of all time. If we could just walk it back a little bit, what was going through your mind when Darko was drafted? Because he's a guy from Europe. He was younger, but everybody, especially in the United States, knew who Carmelo Anthony was. He just led Syracuse to the national championship as a freshman. Were you expecting the Pistons to take Darko? Were you expecting him to take Carmelo? Did you really care at that point, or what was going through your mind?
For me, I really didn't care. I knew that at the time that, we had just made it to the Eastern Conference Final, but we pretty much had enough to get back there and possibly win. So whoever would have came in, they wasn't a whole lot was going to be required out of them anyway. And, they still go back and forth, Darko, Melo, Bosh, D-Wade. I mean, if I can watch these guys play 5 years in the NBA and make a pick, so of course I'll pick the right one.
Right.
But a lot of people look at Darko and say that Darko was a bust. I look at Darko and say he didn't live up to everybody else's expectation. But Darko played 10 years in the NBA. So anybody with a 10-year career, you can't consider that as a bust. They just didn't live up to expectation. But none of those guys was going to play significant minutes on that team. It was just that simple. Those guys was able to, Carmelo went to Denver, and Denver gave him the team. Wade went to Miami, and Miami gave him the team. Chris Bosh went to Toronto, and Toronto gave him the team. Detroit, we already had a team, and it wasn't going to be no one individual, running the show. Those guys was able to get to a team where they was the focus point, and their game grew accordingly. If they would have came to Detroit, they was not going to be the focus point, and it could have stunted their games as well.
I had Joe Smith, your ex-teammate, by the way, and
yes, indeed.
Yeah, in your first year in Detroit, I had Joe Smith on the show before, and I said to him, anyone that's called you a bust, you played over 1,000 games in the NBA. There are so many people in the world that would give their right arm to play 10 of them, and you played 1,000 of them. So to anyone that calls you a bust, they can go kick rocks because, you've accomplished more in your career than they have.
Yeah, I think Darko sort of let the attention, the negative attention, get to him, and he became combative. Instead of letting his game prove people wrong, he took it personal, which also, killed a lot of his relationships with coaches, players, organizations, and stuff like that. But had he accepted his role and just grew behind me, Rasheed, and accepted his role, I think he would have turned out to be a much better player, or he would have had a much better impact on the game because he was a decent player. Darko came to work out. Darko worked out for 2 days. And in 2 days, I saw Darko miss maybe 2 shots. But just the fact that he wasn't playing right away, and then you got the Melo talk and the Chris Bosh talk and the D-Wade talk. Those guys are stars already, and he's still on the bench. He started to fight and buck the system, so he didn't really give himself a chance to reach, that next level.
In 2004, we saw the Pacers unseat you guys as the top seed in the conference. But you guys countered by adding, not just the conference actually, I think that was the number 1 seed in the entire NBA that year, in terms of just regular season records. But you guys added Rasheed Wallace, who, in hindsight, he was a perfect fit. However, leading into that, Rasheed had, a bit of a reputation of being emotional at times. Prior to him coming in, were you concerned at all that this could be an issue and could it potentially implode the team?
No, not at all, man. We had a team. We had a great group of guys. We had what our team had that year that a lot of teams didn't have, and that always got us over the hump. Well, we had leaders, man. We had leaders at every position. We thought somebody was slacking or being a distraction. Hey, we pulled a coattail. You know, it wasn't no, you know, we're going to let him figure it out or whatever, or we're going to let the coach handle it. No, we're going to handle it. You know, if a guy, you know, get off track, you know, me as one of the leaders, it's my job to talk to him, to get him back. You know, it's Chauncey's job, you know, to reel him back in. It's Rip, Tayshaun. You know, let's reel these guys back in, man. Because we knew our winning opportunity was there, and we had to go at it. And for us to win, we all had to be on the same page. We all had to play as a team because it wasn't no one-man show out there. You know, it was a band, and we all played together.
But once you guys got him in, you went through restricted games of holding teams under 70 points. Teams now, they can't even hold teams under 70 points and a half. You were holding teams under 70 points for the entire ball games. And these weren't bad teams. And in the 2004 playoffs, you guys were rolling. Just keep in mind how good the 2004 playoffs were for a second. You saw Dwayne Wade, we've mentioned him before. As a rookie, he really ignited the basketball world. You know, hit a game winner in the first round. He dunked on Jermaine O'Neal. Everyone's talking about him. You saw a great 7-game series between the Kings and the Timberwolves out west. You saw the .4 shot by Derek Fisher. But to me, that all paled in comparison to the run that you guys went on. Because outside of the first round, up against, once again, Joe Smith. This is the second Joe Smith. Up against Joe Smith and the Milwaukee Bucks. After that, you went up against the Nets. You went up against the Pacers and then the Lakers. Let's talk about each of those series quickly. Obviously, Game 7, the 7-game series up against the Nets. This is the team that knocked you out. The year before, they swept you. You win the first 2 games. They came back and they win 3 straight, including a double overtime game at the Palace. But that Game 6 victory, I remember watching that and thinking, this team, the mental toughness is there, because a lot of teams would have folded in that situation.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like you said, we had our ups and downs. You know, we had got beat by Jersey the year before. I think they swept us, and we jump up 2 games, and they come back and they win 3 straight. Like you said, that double overtime game in the Palace. You know, that could have easily broke the average team back. But what we hung our hats on wasn't the fact that we was going to come out and outscore everybody. You know, we was going to come out and we was going to defend. You know, if we had problems scoring, we was going to make sure that you had a hard time scoring. So going back to Jersey, our main focus was, let's make sure we come back home. You know, if we can get back home, then we know that they have no chance of winning it. We know they have no chance of winning. You know, they won 3 straight, and, you know, now they think, you know, they're going to, you know, just roll over us like they did last year. They won 4 straight last year, but we're a different team, and we got different leaders on this team. So when we got to Jersey, and, you know, they took off on us, but we expected that, you know, in their home court. So we locked in and started focusing on defense again. Let's just get stops. Let's string together some stops. Let's string together about 5 or 6 stops. You know, most teams want to focus on stringing together about, you know, 5 or 6 scoring possessions. So our focus was stringing together 5 or 6 stops. And when we got like 5 or 6 stops, it amplified our offense. Because if we can get stops and get out and run, you know, we was a much better team. You know, taking the ball out of bounds, going against a set defense was one thing. But if we can get stops and get teams off balance and hit them with something quick, you know, because in fact, couldn't nobody really run with Rip. You know, I could outrun every center in the league, you know. And if our running plays ain't work, you know, we got our secondary, you know, Chauncey can pull up and shoot the 3 ball. Rasheed can stop up top and shoot the 3 ball. So if we got stops, you know, we was at our best. So we strung together a couple stops and was able to put them on their heels. And once we got Game 6, you know, we knew coming back home that Palace crowd was going to be rocking. And once we get that crowd rolling, the energy level in there is just amazing. So we got back home in Game 7, man. Game 7 was pretty much a cakewalk for us.
The next series up against the Indiana Pacers, they win Game 1. They're your rivals now. At that point, they've got the home court advantage. Reggie Miller's on the fast break, and I don't care what LeBron did in Oracle. All right, that was a beautiful play too, But this, to me, is the greatest defensive play I have ever seen in my life. Because if you look at where Reggie started and you look at where Tayshaun Prince started, we're talking about a 35-foot difference. And he gets that so clean. And not just that, he keeps it in bounds. Tell me, were you surprised? Because you've seen Tayshaun Prince, I don't know, 2 years now, right? But that play, I still, whenever I see that, I shake my head. I can't believe that actually happened.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Tayshaun play. I see Tayshaun make some great, defensive stops, some blocks. I know what he's capable of doing. Was I surprised? Hell yeah, absolutely. Because I just knew that, that game was over. And but one of the things we always pride ourselves on was getting out there for 48 minutes. And that was it, man. That was the last, 30 to 24 seconds to close off that 48, man. And he got on his track meet and he met him at the rim. I was like, wow. Yeah, at first I was like, oh, that was close. Could be a goaltender. And I looked up at the replay. I'm like, oh no, that's clean. That's clean. And to me, it epitomized, what that team was all about, man. That was one of the best defensive plays I ever seen, on one of the better defensive teams I ever played on. So when that happened, man, it was that I even sit back and I'd have blocked a lot of shots. I sit back and say, man, that's amazing right there. And but before that block, before that game, you got to understand after game one, I didn't know anything about it until I got back to the arena. After game one, I walk in the locker room and reporters started asking me about this article in the paper. I'm like, what article in the paper? And they showed me the article, and it says, "The guarantee."
Oh, I remember this.
So I read the article, and she tells reporters after game one, we all feel like we let the game get away. She tell the reporters, like, I guarantee we win game two. You can put it on the front page, the middle page, the back page, the sports section. I guarantee we win game two. And then it was like they kept trying to ask him another question, and all he was saying, I guarantee we win game two. So that was the guaranteed game. And that right there just let you know that we all had each other back. You know what I'm saying? He could have, Reggie had a clear path, man. We could have just stopped and been like, okay, well, everybody in the gym thought that it was just an easy layup. So, we're going after everything. We ain't conceding anything. We're going after you, man. You gotta beat us. And that was our mentality. If we lose, you gotta beat us.
Well, it really sparked you guys, because even though you were in the conference finals, you then took that series. The Pacers won Game 4, but you were able to finish it off in Game 6. You won Game 5 as well, so that Game 5 is underrated when you're talking about the mental toughness of this team. But guys did advance, and I really wanted to get to this, because this might be my favorite playoff series of all time. You guys up against 5 Hall of Famers, if you include Phil Jackson. You guys were given no chance from the bookmakers. And Game 1, you go in there, you eviscerate them. You win by double digits. Game 2, Shaq has a 3-point play down the stretch. Kobe hits a ridiculous 3 on Rasheed Hamilton to send it to overtime. By the skin of their teeth, they survive 1 game apiece. But what happens in Game 3, Game 4, Game 5 was just special. And it showed how important synergy is. And you can have 4 or 5 Hall of Famers on one end of the court, but the fact that you guys played so much better together, I think it all started with you and your ability to guard Shaq, or at least force Shaq to positions on the court where he didn't want to start. And yeah, he still put up, if you look at the box score, he shot 60%, but that means nothing to me. The fact of the matter is he only put up 20 points a game, and for the dude who was averaging, 34, 35 points per game in all these other finals appearances combined, that's almost half of his production. They had no chance when you look at it in hindsight. And I don't say this lightly when I talk about the greatest playoff series of all time, because that showed exactly you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have the mental toughness, you've got no chance.
Right. The thing was with that series is, it wasn't never, my intention to go out here. I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna shut Shaq down, because that's impossible. But my mental goal was, I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna stand up to Shaq, and it's gonna shut down the rest of his teammates, because they're not used to seeing that. Right. They're always used to seeing people double team and triple team Shaq, which allows the Derek Fishers to get open look, which allowed them to get, slashings to the basket, which allowed Kobe Bryant to sit around and, play one-on-one and break down the rest of the defense. I'm going to play him straight up, and I'm still going to do all my other defensive rotations. So, if Tayshaun get beat off the dribble, I'm still going to be there to help him. If Rip get beat off the dribble, I'm going to help him. Chauncey get beat, I'm going to help him. The fact that I was able to play him straight up and still able to help out the rest of my team, it sent a message to the rest of my guys like, well, it ain't no excuses now. If they ain't going to play Shaq straight up, we got to be the ones to decide the outcome of the game. And that's exactly what happened. It wasn't no open look. It wasn't no easy walk-in shots. Everybody had to earn everything. And, 5 Hall of Fame players cannot beat a 14-man team. We had guys coming off the bench like Lindsey Hunter, Mike James, Corliss Williams, Eldon Campbell, Darvin Ham, who just reinforced, what we did on the floor. Like, we didn't lose anything when those guys came in. Those guys still had the same defensive principles and still played just as hard. When everybody said we didn't have a chance, we was wondering, what everybody else was thinking. Like, man, are y'all serious? Like, are y'all looking at, are y'all looking at the games, or is y'all just looking at the names? And obviously they was just looking at the names, because when you look at the game, you can break it down to what we was doing that year versus what they was doing that year, and how we got to the finals versus how they got to the finals. It's a no-brainer.
Man, if anybody listening has not watched those games, watch all 5 of them. They're all on YouTube. Just keep in mind the context, though, of the the quote-unquote underdog, because I know you guys didn't view yourselves as underdogs, but the rest of the basketball will, and then you will understand the context as to why this team and why you were so beloved amongst and respected amongst NBA fans, because you took that challenge head on. You took it as a slap in the face, as you should have, as a team, to go out there and prove everybody wrong.
Well, what I try to explain to people, I tell them once, and if they don't understand it, I just move on and let them have their, they'll say or whatever they want to say about it. I held Shaq to his average, which when you hold a player to his average, it said that he could get this number on any player in the world. But the difference was my productive was up. My scoring was up. My rebounding was up. And, I got a couple extra steals. My performance level was, when you look at the two, Shaq was at his average. Mine was above average. When you look at who got the best of the matchup, I figured I got the best of the matchup, because I was prepared for everything that he was going to do, but he wasn't prepared for me to knock in 1 or 2 of those 15-footers a game.
Yeah, I remember those. You faced up on him a few times, man, and you that was surprising. But there was one play that I'll never forget, and that was the tip dunk that you had over the top of him. I think it was the end of Game 5. It might have been Game 3. I can't remember specifically.
Game 5.
That was Game 5. That was special, man. And then, of course, the moment when you spray canned the number 1 out. That was a very cool moment. 2004, 2005. Now, you guys don't know this. When I reached out to Ben and I came up with the topics, Ben did not say, do not talk about the malice of the palace. I said that. So we're not going to touch on that, because to me, it's been talked to death already. We don't need to talk about it. If you want to know more about it, go find it somewhere else, because to me, I'm not even interested in it. It was an unfortunate situation, and we'll just leave it at that. But Ben, if you're wondering, it's not, Ben never said, hey, I'll do this interview if you don't talk about it or anything of that nature. This is my call, it's not Ben's call. So we're going to move on from that. But to say that there was a roller coaster that season is a complete understatement. However, Shaq is now in the East. He was traded. I mean, to me, that was the greatest side of how badly you dominated. You actually ended up you got the man traded. I'm exaggerating. But he's now in the Eastern Conference. He's alongside Dwayne Wade. They have now the top seed in the conference, the Miami Heat. Now you guys have a 7-game war with Dwayne Wade, who's emerging as a genuine star player. Shaq is as motivated, maybe not as talented as what he was in terms of his athleticism, but he's as motivated as ever. Game 7 on the road, that victory, that has to be up there as one of the most satisfying moments of your career.
Yeah, I mean, it was, like you say, Shaq hooked up with a new wingman and Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade was up and coming, and he was looking to leave his mark on the game or make his mark on the game. And they had the best record in the East, and they was rolling. But we still feel like we was the better team. And all we had to do was just play together, hang in there, and keep our heads in the game. And that game 7, man, that was a battle, man. That was, I say that game 7. That game 7 is what got the Spurs to win. That series. I don't think either one of us, could have probably won the finals that year. Because we beat each other up so bad, man, and it was a chess match. They make adjustment, we make adjustment. We make adjustment, they make adjustment. And like you say, Shaq might not have been as talented as the old Shaquille O'Neal, but he was motivated, and you could tell he was hungry. He was hungry for a number of reasons. They lost to us, the year before. The Lakers chose to keep Kobe, and he wanted to show Kobe that he can win a championship without him. So, he was motivated to play. But I just remember that matchup, man. I was like, it wasn't about a whole lot about what the Spurs did. We were just beat up so bad coming out of that series, man. It just took us a minute to adjust. The first 2 games in San Antonio, we was pretty much sleepwalking, and you can see it. It was written all over our face, fatigue.
The first 2 games, you're right. You guys were handed big blowout losses. But back in Detroit, you won game 3 and 4. I'll never forget Tim Duncan looking shell-shocked after game 4. I don't think he'd ever seen a defense like you guys, because he had won in 2003, he had won in 99. He's obviously a veteran. He had won multiple MVPs at that time as well. He looked confused, and I'll never forget the camera went to Greg Popovich trying to console him, and I've never seen a star player that rattled like what you guys did to him, and that led to Game 5 and Robert Horry having one of his greatest performances. Manu Ginobili was playing great. He embraced the pressure very well, I thought, in that series. An undertone to that series was the rumors surrounding Larry Brown going back to New York. Not back to New York, but going to take over the Knicks head coaching position. At that point, because of course you're at the finals, I mean, mentally you're fatigued. You just went through an absolute war with Wade and Shaq and Eddie Jones and those other guys in Miami. Was any of that a distraction with Larry Brown, or were you just... tell me what was going through your mind then.
It wasn't really a distraction for us, man. We was focused on win. That was a job that front office had to deal with. Our job was to go out and play and win games, and that was our main focus, man. And when we got back home for Game 3, it was hey, it's time to rally the troops and go out here and play, man. We had a couple of days to get a little rest, and fed off the energy from the Palace, and we was able to get back into the series. But that stuff wasn't really a distraction to the players. you know, we was focused on winning. You know, that was our goal. We wanted to get the back-to-back, and that was our main focus on.
Game 6, you're down 3-2, and this is back when it was 2-3-2, not 2-2-1-1-1. So Game 6 is in San Antonio, and you guys dominated that game. You won by 10 points, and that, you take Robert Horry's performance away, and maybe you guys did win do go back-to-back. But you force a Game 7, you're leading heading into that fourth quarter, and I'm glad you said what you said, though, when you just said the mental fatigue, because I think you guys just ran out of gas in that final quarter of Game 7. And I'm not saying that as an excuse or anything like that, but if you watch the game, you watch the intensity that you guys had in Game 6, the intensity that you had in the first 3 quarters, and the focus and the intensity, I think it just ran out. And it's like when you broke your foot, there's only so much you can actually push your body to do. There's only so much mental toughness you can actually push before you just run out.
Yeah, I mean, it was a warrior type effort, but they were the fresher team, and they made plays down the stretch when we didn't. But like I say, that was nobody walked away from that series, at least not in my locker room, blaming distractions or blaming one play. It was, man, we had, if you go back and you look at that season and playoffs in the history, we would have, if we played more games that year to get to the finals, from the start of the playoffs to the end of the Game 7 of the finals. We played more games to get to the final, Game 7, than any other team in NBA history. And to see that those guys still was mentally sharp and mentally focused and came out and gave it a warrior champion type effort, that was, you was proud to see guys play like that. And that way, guys are not playing for selfish reasons. Guys was all about, their team and their teammates. Because at one point in time, man, we all had to go through something. Chauncey came into the league and, had a couple teams give up on him, and he had to, reevaluate his game and refocus himself and reestablish himself in the league. Rip came in, played 1 year with MJ, and MJ decided that he wasn't the dude for him, and traded him to Detroit. Tayshaun set his whole rookie season until playoffs. Of course, my story, undrafted, having to, wait, prove myself time after time and wait for my opportunity. Teams were giving up on Sheed because they said was saying that he was a distraction. So, we was a group of guys that was out there. We was playing for something bigger than the game, man. We was playing for each other, and we was motivated by more than, win, losses, money, or whatever. We did it for each other. At the end of the day, I can live with that effort we gave.
In 2006, we're going to switch gears a little bit here, and I wanted to talk about, of all things, the All-Star break. Now, listeners of the show will laugh at that because I usually the All-Star weekend, to me, I pay very little attention to it. But in 2006, I paid a lot of attention to it. And I'm sure you remember this because Larry Brown left, but you brought in Flip Saunders, and you guys were flirting with the idea of breaking the Bulls record, and you had an excellent record at that stage, and you sent 4 All-Star players, should have been 5 in my opinion, but 4 All-Star players to the All-Star game. And I was excited to see if you guys would actually get on the court at the same time, and you did. Of course, Paul Pierce was the 5th guy, and you guys went on a run, and I wanted to watch that because I wanted to see how the West were going to try to play you, and the continuity that you guys had built up. It didn't work very well for the West as you guys went on a very nice run in the fourth quarter. Tell me about that experience.
Man, it was a great experience, man. It was, I think up until that year, I had made a couple All-Star games, and, I thought that Rip and Chauncey had got snubbed a couple times, and then to finally see those guys make an all-star team, and to see all 4 of us there together, like you say, I thought it should have been 5, but for some reason they left Tayshaun off, and to be there with 3 of your guys, man, it's a great experience, man, and being in an all-star game, knowing that it's like you got a secret weapon, you got a whole all-star team, and you got a whole new team within an all-star team, if that makes sense. Like,
yep.
At any given time, not only do we have our 4 guys there, we had our entire coaching staff there. So we can go out there, we can literally game plan and run plays, and
it almost doesn't sound fair, man.
So that was so to me, it was amazing, man. It was an amazing experience. And what the icing on the cake is when we all came into the game, the reception that we got from the rest of the players in the East. If you look at when we checked into the game, if you look at our bench, everybody is standing up and everybody is screaming, Detroit basketball.
Really? I didn't catch that. That's amazing.
I'm like, that's the ultimate form of respect right there. You get this from your peers, knowing that once you leave this game, that you're going back to your team, they're going back to their team, and you got to come out and fight, and battle again. But they showed us so much love and so much respect, man. It was amazing. It was an amazing experience.
So we're going to segue from respect to complete disrespect, and I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. We're going to skip ahead to the 2006 playoffs up against the Miami Heat, and I said that Tayshaun Prince, his block on Reggie Miller might have been the most impressive defensive play, but that's because of the context and how valuable that was. Your block on Shaq, oh my God. Oh my goodness. This is the same guy that was throwing bodies around for his entire career, looked unstoppable, in my opinion, maybe the most athletically gifted player of all time, and I don't say that lightly. And I think Rasheed was on him. He made a nice move. He never saw you coming. However, he had the ball in the palm of his hands and you came up, and I've never seen somebody stuffed that badly before in my life. Tell me about that play. Tell me about that play, man.
I mean, as a shot blocker, rebounder, and, as a defensive specialist, timing is everything. One step too early, you get beat. One step too late, you get beat. But if you arrive right on time, either you're going to come up with the block, the rebound, or the steal, or you're going to be in position to take the charge. For me, time has always been everything. Like you say, in high school, I played safety. I played cornerback. I played DN. I was a tight end. All those positions deals with timing. If I come out my cut too fast for the quarterback ready to throw the ball, yeah, I was open, but I'm probably not going to be open. If I break on the ball before, quarterback is ready to release the ball, if I'm playing corner, yeah, I'm going to get beat. So blocking shots is all about timing. And I arrived on the perfect time, and like you say, he didn't see me. I know he didn't see me. So I was able to break on the ball, and I was able to get over the top of the ball. So once I got my hand on the top of the ball, I really don't care who you are. You could be Shaq, you could be Wilt, you could be Kareem, you could be whoever. I'll get my hand on top of the ball, and when it just comes to, pure strength, I can match strength with anybody. I might not be able to match height, but as far as strength, I can match strength with anybody. So when I got my hand over the top of the ball, I knew it was a wrap. I knew it was going down from there.
Well, Shaq went down from there. The look on Shaq's face when he was on the ground, and I'm a big fan of Shaq's, but oh my God, that was I've never seen anything quite like that one, man. In 2007, speaking of Shaq, 2007, you would sign with the Bulls, and we'll talk about that in a minute too, because that's some of the user questions relating to that. But 2007, you were signed with the Bulls, but you ended up sweeping the defending champion Heat because they did go on to beat you in 6 games. They did go on to beat Dallas, and they ended up being the NBA champions. If you are keeping track now, that is 3 times. That's the 3rd time that you have beaten Shaq. And in my opinion, 2-1. And in my opinion, that is not a coincidence. What do you remember specifically? Now, you talked about, limiting Shaq to his averages and just matching him and from a mental standpoint and not letting him bulldoze you. Because when I look at Shaq's game, and I call him the most athletically gifted player of all time because he never really honed his skills like, say, an Hakeem Olajuwon on offense, or a David Robinson on offense, or those great players, Tim Duncan on offense, where they had multiple counters. Shaq was pure strength. He had a baseline jumper, if you can call it a jumper, it's like a one-handed shot, and then a sweeping hook that would go across the lane. But it was all predicated off his strength. Am I wrong in that? Tell me what the scouting report was from you in terms of trying to limit Shaq.
Well, my scouting report for Shaq is he's dominant because of his strength, and one of my strengths is my strength. If I can make him go to his counter move, then I'm winning. If I can match his strength and stand him up when we get to the spot, then I'm winning. He's going to score, but my objective was never to stop him from scoring. My objective was to stop him from dominating the game. When Shaq scored, above his average, and people started running double teams at it, Shaq was a willing passer. Shaq didn't mind passing the ball. He ain't mind throwing the little no-look passes and playing around with the ball. So if I can take those plays away by playing them straight up, that allow my teammates to play honest defense, then our chance of winning is better. Because if I stood him up and he was outside the lane, he wasn't likely to take that shot. If he caught the ball in rhythm, he might take a shot outside the lane. But, Shaq played more with strength, not so much as rhythm. So I knew I could match him strength-wise and stand him up for the most part and force him to take tough shots. And when you playing a guy honest for 48 minutes, my biggest strength was my condition. I was in so much better shape than, anybody that I played against. So I would wear him down. And I was able to force Shaq to get tired. And sometimes he catch the ball. He wouldn't even look to attack. He just looked for a pass and try to find a cutter. That's when I knew that he was getting a little winded. So if I could get him fatigued, that's more icing on the cake right there.
In 2008, you were traded to the Cavs, and Mike Brown actually moved you to the 4 spot. Everybody will remember what LeBron did in Game 7, and of course, the shootout with Paul Pierce. But what I noticed was your defensive effort on Garnett, and that was instrumental because Garnett had a horrible game that game, and once again, not a coincidence, you were on him. This was the first time you had matched up against him in the playoffs, because he'd been in the Western Conference prior to that. What challenges did he have in terms of the scouting report, and what were you trying to do? Because it's completely different to Shaq.
Yeah, completely different. I mean, KG's a more skilled player, can knock down a 15-footer, turn around jump shot, but my thing was, one of my biggest scouting tactics was that if I'm playing against a 7-footer, it would be like when I play against a 6'3" or a 6'4" guy. It's just hard to move little guys when they strong and they get underneath you. So if I can make first contact and stand them up, I feel like I could win because they wasn't strong enough to knock me off my spot. I was strong enough to hold my position, and I was athletic enough to challenge the ball up top. And my hand speed was quick enough to flick at the ball when they got it waist high. So I knew if I could force KG off the block and force him to bag me down. I figure after 20 minutes of you banging and trying to bag me down, it was going to take a toll on you. And that's what I did. I stayed close to him, and I met him high, and I made him fight to get to the block. Then when he caught the ball, I made him fight, to get the shot off. And, after a while, it's like that little brother syndrome. I got 7 older brothers, and I can remember when I started playing against them. I can remember if I just played hard every time I was on the court, at some point they started to get frustrated. Like, yo, dude, like, man, go guard somebody else. Like, you know what I mean? So it irritates. So if I can get close to him and I can hold him up and I can bang him, after a while it gets a little irritating, and it forced them to take quick shots, and it forced them to try to, prove to me that they can match my power and my strength, and it sort of takes them out of the game a little bit. But you can remember that at the end of the game, we had the ball, and I think we was up 1, and we called a timeout, and we wanted to go offense defense, and I told our coaching staff this is a bad idea. So they wanted to take me out the game and put Joe Smith in the game. Joe Smith hadn't played the whole fourth quarter, so the chance of him making that shot was slim to none. I talked to Joe. Joe said he wasn't feeling it, that he was stiff and he wasn't really feeling it. I relayed it to the coaches, and it was like, well, if we don't make the shot, we'll call a timeout and get you back in the game. But I told him, I played for Doc Rivers. I know Doc Rivers. If you take me off the floor, he's not going to call a timeout. He's going to take his chances. He's going to push that ball down the floor. He's not going to let you put your best defender back in the game. I played with him. I played for him. I know how he thinks. And sure enough, they took me out, put Joe Smith in. We missed the shot, and they ran the ball down, dropped it in the paint to KG. KG just turned and just dropped the ball in, game over. And Doc Rivers looked down the floor and looked at me and was like, there was no way I was going to let you back in that game.
Right.
So it was, coaches up too.
I'm glad you said that, because once again, a segue into this. In 2009, the very next season, the Cavs, you guys won 66 games because you were the 4th seed last time. And now 66 games. You started 53 out of the 56 games that you played in. But in the playoffs, though, Mike Brown went with Varejao and Ilgauskas over you. And in the conference finals, people talk about Dwight Howard going ballistic. And quite honestly, man, given your track record against Shaq or Garnett or Duncan or any other big, I know hindsight's 20/20, but man, sometimes these decisions are head scratching, or as you like to say, they fuck up as well. But my goodness, this one really is a head scratcher.
But that was the season. Also, that was also the season that I broke my leg.
You were playing the playoffs, though, weren't you, or was that under a minute restriction?
Oh no, I was playing.
Yeah.
They had projected me to come back in 6 to 8 weeks, and I was back on the floor at 4 weeks. So yeah, no, I was playing, but because the team was rolling going into the playoffs, they thought it would be better to start Varejao than to bring me in, off the bench instead of starting me. They didn't want to jack up the team chemistry, but my thing is that I add chemistry to every team that I play on.
I'm glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that, because I was worried that because you're a pretty humble dude, man, that maybe you wouldn't have said that. But give me one example of you messing up team chemistry.
Right. Like I don't destroy team chemistry because, for one, I'm a leader. For two, I don't need shots to be effective. And 3, I'm going to grind it out, on the defensive end, where any team might be liking and can use a little help. But, that was coach's decision. We was all fine with it. and we rolled with it. But I even thought, in that series that maybe we would have made a little different adjustment, but we didn't end up losing that game, that series or whatever. Which another time I thought if we could have just got out of the East, we would have had a chance to win the championship.
After that season, you returned to the Pistons and finished out your career in Detroit. That must have been sweet, and that must have been the finish that you wanted.
Yeah, but another thing you got to know prior to the return to Detroit, something else happened between me and Shaq. I was traded from Cleveland to Phoenix for Shaq.
Oh, really? I didn't catch that.
Yeah, but I just never. I didn't report to Phoenix. I told them that that I was at the end of my career and I wanted to go back, to Detroit and retire in front of the Detroit fans. And we worked out a buyout.
Wow, I feel like an idiot now. I'm gonna have to edit this out. But there you go. I did not know that. There you go. You after kicking his ass all this time, they traded for it. No. Having your number raised there. I remember watching, because I had League Pass at that time, so I was watching that game. I was still in Australia. And you were talking about the emotional connection that you had to Detroit. You were talking about how it's a place where you can raise your family there. It's a place you can call home. But all the memories as a fan started flooding back in my head of like what you're doing in Detroit, getting 15 rebounds, 20 rebounds up against Olajuwon, or, blocking 6 or 7 shots, getting 5 steals, getting 10 points. And I can only imagine the memories of what was going through your mind when your number was being raised.
Yeah, man, it was it was awesome feeling, man. Very emotional. Because when I started this journey, every step, every step of the way, every achievement from getting a tryout to making the team, to actually playing in my first game, to actually starting my first game, making it to the playoffs, winning a playoff series, to making it to the conference final, winning the conference final, winning a championship. Like a lot of that stuff as a kid you dreamed about and, you try to prepare for. But when it's time to get that jersey retired, it's just really something that you can't prepare for, because it all depends on the organization. And like the organization can't win you a championship, they can pay you, give you some, pay you money or whatever, but they can't go out there and perform for you. So now when your career is done, what type of impression did I leave on this organization? Do they appreciate, the work I've done? And in the best way, the ultimate prize that they can give you after you're done is to raise that jersey and say, man, we really do appreciate it. We really do recognize, the impact you had on, this team and this community. And we want to honor you for that. It was very emotional and something that you really, really can't prepare for. It ain't no rebounds, ain't no blocks, no dunks, no nothing. Now it's completely on somebody else to judge you. And it's really not judging ability to play basketball, just your ability to play basketball, but also your character and what you meant to this franchise and to this community. And to have that number raised up, it says that you're special to us, and we want to remember you forever.
We started this when I was talking about you deserving to be in the Hall of Fame, and the legacy that you have left goes beyond Detroit. It goes beyond Chicago. It goes beyond Orlando or anywhere else that you've played. You've got pretty much universally everybody is stomping their feet right now and saying this is a load of garbage. You deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. You should have been in the first time. We get the fact that sometimes they don't like to put in players on the first ballot. We get that. You should have been the second time. And now that you're still waiting is nonsense. Because to me, when I said that you were a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year award, they should have a Defensive Player of the Generation award. Because you defined defense for that entire generation. And I'm not the only one saying this. The players that you played against are saying this. The fans of other teams universally recognize you as such. It's not just Detroit that appreciates what you, even though you were killing everybody, right, that you were going up against. They still recognize. I think there's a lot of fans out there, and a large percentage of fans, that don't just look at the jerseys of their home team. They recognize great players. Why Michael Jordan was applauded every single time he went into an opposing arena. Kobe Bryant got that big farewell in every other arena. They recognize that, and the same thing is happening with you, albeit it shouldn't happen with you because you should be in the Hall of Fame. But, you know, Dominique Wilkins, when Dominique Wilkins didn't get in the Hall of Fame, everyone got up and said that Dominique should be in. And if you don't get in this time, I am boycotting the Hall of Fame until you get in. There will be no Hall of Fame talk on my show. There will be nothing. To me, the Hall of Fame, I may even start up my own Hall of Fame and just to induct you into it. But we've got some questions. I'm going to try and get through them quickly. Before we get into that, there's something very interesting about you that not a whole lot of people know about. And since you've retired, you've gotten into RC car racing.
Right.
Has that been something you've always had a hobby of? Or?
Yeah, always had a passion and a hobby for, racing RC cars. I did it on a small scale while I was playing, I might race a couple local races during the summer or whatever. But, once I retired, I started hitting the professional circuit, and traveling around a little bit. And, man, it's a great hobby, that a lot of people don't know about. I have started taking an ambassador chairman role to, try to bring awareness to the hobby. What they call it hobby. I say it's a sport.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that, deal with the hand and eye coordination that you need in order to, be successful at racing RC cars. It's a sport. We got people that travel from all over the world, Australia, China, Japan, Italy, Mexico, got people, Venezuela, got people traveling all over the world to race these cars. And I'm like, when you start to travel that distance, it's not a hobby anymore, it's a sport. And, I just try to bring some awareness to it, man. It's fun, it's fast, it's safe, it's family-oriented, and, and it's affordable. So, I just want every chance I get, just try to encourage people to come out and check it out. Like different races that we have, come out and check it out, man. It just might be something that you might just be interested in.
Is there a place people can get a schedule for this?
You can go check out my website. I got a Instagram. Check it out on there, and we'll be posting races and stuff on that.
We'll put that in the show links, and we'll get that out to the people, because honestly, it's something I'm interested in. Because when I was a kid, I had a remote control car too, and I remember having to charge the thing up for about 2 hours to get 15 minutes of juice out of it. Those were the days, Ben. Those were the days.
Yeah, see, these are different. You can get the nitro power. We got nitro power cars.
Yeah.
And these cars run up to like 75, 80 miles an hour.
Oh wow.
And you can run them pretty much, just as long as you got your tank. Your tank size is maybe 5 minutes, 4.5 minutes. You can refill your tank, keep the engine rolling, keep running. You can run for hours. So it ain't the typical 2 hour charge and 15-minute run time.
Hey, don't be making fun of my fast tracks, man. I that was a big part of my life.
Yeah, times have changed a little bit.
So let's go into these rapid fire questions. Do you still find yourself watching the game?
Yes. Well, I can't say watching the game, but I find myself watching certain players.
Okay. Which players do you seek out to watch?
I mean, I watch LeBron. I pay attention to Draymond and the Warriors. Keep my eye on Big Cat, Kyrie. Greek Freak. Philly got a nice squad. So a couple of teams like that.
Do you still have? This is a good one. Do you still have the oversized pregame ball that you shot around with?
I absolutely do.
That's amazing.
I got about 5 of them in my gym.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's. I would have seen Instagram post of this. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Favorite Rasheed Wallace story, and you can't say the guaranteed.
Favorite Rasheed Wallace story, man. It's just I think I was playing in my pro-am basketball tournament one summer, and a guy was shooting a free throw, and I hit and he missed it, but it had been a big argument or whatever about was it really a foul or whatever. So dude missed the shot. Then I hear a guy in the stands scream out, "The ball don't lie." And I turned and looked, man. It was I was like, okay, all right, Rasheed.
Was he the guy that invented that, or did he just shed light onto that? Was that going around prior to him?
Nah, he started that. That's all he is.
Whose work ethic impressed you?
Work ethic.
Mm. Are you going to say your mum? Surely you got to say your mum here.
I mean, my mom was amazing. I mean, just work ethic, man. I mean, God, we got some tireless workers, man.
Mm.
I don't know. I would say, a guy like Rip Hamilton. Constantly on the move. Always either ready to go or look like he's ready to go. Yeah, ability to make plays without the ball, and even when he caught the ball, if you was quick enough to catch up to him, you still got to understand when you caught up to him, he still was 6'8". So,
yeah. Who was your hardest competition or competitor? Excuse me.
My hardest competitor, man, was the guy in the mirror. How hard are you willing to push yourself when nobody's really looking? So that was always covered up, but that was always one of the things that I struggled with was when my coaches tell me you had to go hard, every time you step on the floor, regardless. I'm like, man, ain't nobody watching. I'm not about to, kill myself when ain't nobody watching. I go hard when the fans come. But just learning the difference between, that's what amateurs do, than the difference between what a professional do. Professionals go hard and get some out of their workout every time they step on the floor or every time they step in a gym, whether it's practice, embassies, and playoffs, championship, or whatever. So just just looking at my work ethic from when I started until when I finished, it's tough to just go to the gym by yourself and run full speed and jump 10 times to your apex, So that man in the mirror has always been my toughest challenge.
You don't have to go too in-depth with this one. How much bickering was there between Shaq and Kobe in the 2004 finals? Could you even sense that?
Well, I didn't even notice a lot of bickering until after the season. And, then some of the things that came out and, plus a couple other things that might have happened during the course of their relationship. But I didn't really notice a lot on the floor. All I know is it don't matter what's going on in your locker room, winning heals all. So whatever was going on, we just want to keep it on their mind by not letting them win.
I like that you said that because if they had won, we wouldn't have heard about it. And two, I think it's used to kind of disrespect what you guys did. Instead of acknowledging that you guys absolutely annihilated them, it's now, they lost because Shaq and Kobe were feuding. So I didn't like that question too much, but I got that a few times, so I had to reword it. Speaking of 2004, how did you personally celebrate the championship?
Personally, I just lived in the moment, man. I just enjoyed the fact that, from where I came from, Whitehall, Alabama, Lowndes County, so holding that, championship trophy, I just try to put it in perspective, man. Like, if there ever one person that you can look at and say that this guy's the definition of no excuses, then I would have to take that. I would have to take that crown because I could have gave up a million times and nobody would have even second guessed it. Like nobody would even notice. But the fact that I believed in myself and I kept grinding, and that great things do happen to people who stay humble and you stay hungry. So I just try to put it in perspective. Like, man, I could ask for a better ending from where I started.
Slight change of pace. Is it true that you wore headbands around your biceps?
Yes, sir.
That's incredible. What did it feel like to be on the cover of NBA 2K5?
I mean, it was, for me, it was great, man. It was a hell of a experience. It was a hell of a moment because it says that people recognize you now. People respect what you do on the basketball court because for years and years and years in every sport, like we don't really put defensive players on the covers. You know what I mean? And when people say that we was a team with no superstars, well, like they don't just put average players on the cover of video games. Like, you could say we was a team. We had superstars on that team, but we were just a product of what happened when superstars know how to play together.
If anyone says that there was no superstars on that team, they're idiots. Because you've got, in my opinion, at least 4 future Hall of Famers. Should be 1 current one. Or 2. Chauncey's up this year too, isn't he? So you've got 2 plus Rasheed plus Richard Hamilton. I'm not sure if Tayshaun Prince will get there or not. He has won a gold medal as well. Realistically, I would probably put him in because I appreciated what he did defensively as well as I said, he won a championship, won a gold medal. That should be enough, whether he gets in or not. But in my opinion, you've got 4 Hall of Famers. And if you got 4 Hall of Famers, there's got to be at least 1 superstar on that team. I'm just trying to figure out the maths here. Next question. We've only got 2 left. Was leaving Detroit the toughest decision of your career?
Yes, by far.
Okay.
By far. Because not only had Detroit become my home, that was my family home. That's where me and my wife built our family. That's where our kids was born, and I feel like I was walking away from my team. From the time I got there until the time I left, I was the only player that was still there from that first season I played in Detroit. Mm-hmm. Like I just feel like that was my team that I was walking away from. And yeah, it was a tough decision. It was real tough.
And the final question, clearly the most important question of the entire show. What goes through your mind whenever you hear a gong?
I say, I wish I could have had the copyrights to that dome because everybody's using it now.
I'm going to use it for this episode, by the way. There's going to be multiple gongs in it.
I mean, it still give me tears, and make the palms get a little sweaty, and it's still one of the best sounds in my basketball career.
Ben Wallace, this has been an absolute pleasure, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.